Okay, hello guys. So welcome back to another book review. I'm doing a book review from my teenagehood that I've already read, that I've done a reread of. Sorry, excuse me. And this book, I remember really enjoying it from my teenagehood, but reading it the second time round, there's a lot of so I'm going to put the trigger warnings in now. So if you don't like bullying, drugs, um, SA, uh, rape, I'm gonna say, because of a YouTube. This book does have those trigger warnings in. Um, and I think there is a mention of one of the characters' mums does pass away from cancer, I think. So that's another trigger warning. But yeah, if any of those things trigger you in any way, or that's not something you want to hear about, then click off this video now. But if you're curious to know more about the book, then I'll go into more details. So this book, I believe, came out in let me see. I believe this came out in 2012. 2012 was the year for YA books. As I say, when I was a teenager and I read this, I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars when I very first read it. But this time round, I'm going to give it 4 stars just because now that I'm reading this from an adult point of view, with thank you, Tiny, for your input. That was Tiny. Excuse me again. Yeah, because of the trigger warnings and the certain topics that happen, reading it now, and like the victim blaming that also happens in this, I'm gonna knock it down to 4 stars. So on my Goodreads, it's got 5 stars, but as I'm doing this now for YouTube, it's got 4 stars. But it's a YA. It has 356 pages, and it's one of 3 books. And this is Burn for Burn by jennyhan, and I think that's Sabine Vivian. I'm really sorry if I've butchered that. I apologise, I'm not great with names. But she's the author of The List, and then jennyhan is the author of To All the Boys I've Loved Before. I think one of her books was a Netflix series, if I remember correctly. I think it's the summer I turned pretty. Sorry, excuse me, I've got a really bad cough tonight. But yeah, this is one of 3 books. This is 356 pages, broken up from the point of views of 3 characters of Kat, Mary, and I think it's pronounced Lilia. And I'm sorry if I've got that wrong, but we're just gonna call her Elle just to keep it short because I generally don't know how to read her name. But I will read the back. So it says, bad things can happen even to good girls, and sometimes the only way to make things right is to do something wrong. Lilia used to trust boys, but not after what happened this summer, and she'll do anything to stop the same thing happening to her sister. Cats over the rumours, the insults, the cruel jokes, it all goes back to the one person, her ex-best friend, and now it's playback time. Mary left town 4 years ago because of a boy. Now she's back and has plans to make him pay. The 3 very different girls who want the same thing, revenge, sweet revenge, and they won't stop until they each have a taste. So looking at the first book, I really like the writing style. The chapters are really short. It took me under a week to get through this. And I did enjoy it, but I'm debating about whether to keep it or not, just because of it, as I say, the trigger warnings, the bullying, stuff like that. There is one of the girls, Mary, used to be a very big girl herself, and she was bullied for her weight, and I can kind of relate to that myself in some way. Being bullied about my own weight doesn't sit too well with me, so I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna keep it now. But anyway, we have Mary, Kat, and Lilia. The only reason I really wanted to reread this series was because Mary's like, I'm gonna spoil it for you anyway. Like, Mary's basically a ghost who was bullied and then died. Um, and she does this weird paranormal stuff of making one of the characters fall off the pyramid of the cheerleader thing, making a whole school at homecoming, kind of all the lights go um shattering and flashing. It's a bit like the scene out of like the Kerry film with Chloe Grace Moretz. Reminded me a lot of that, and I kind of like the writing style because it was very um short as well, which was kind of nice. And as I say, it didn't take me too long to get through. So if you want like that fresh kind of read, I do recommend this book, but it does come with some of those warnings as well. So Mary arrives back at the start of the book after being away for 4 years, if I remember correctly. Mary talks about how many people live there and how many people stay there yearly because it is kind of a holiday destination. And she tries to hitchhike back because her parents aren't with her, and I think it's Aunt Bet, it's pronounced, lives at the house where Mary used to live 4 years prior. Um, but she ends up getting to her house anyway by walking. So we kind of go through the introduction of these characters the first book. Then we have Lilia, who's hanging out with some of the friends and boys. So the other three main characters of the revenge characters, as we're going to call them, is Alex, Rennie, and Reeve. So, or Rev, something like that. Um, Reeve is the one, or Rev is the one who bullied Mary about her weight. And Mary wants to get revenge for that. Rennie is Lilia's friend who's always had everything she ever wants and is basically a bit of a bitch. And Lilia wants revenge um, for Rennie, and Kat wants revenge for Alex, I think, for basically not being with her for the summer, and um, for Alex and Nadia getting the wrong end of the stick. And Alex thought that, sorry, Lilia thought that Alex and Nadia had hooked up. But anyway, so it starts off with that, and she gets her friends' numbers, and they're kind of hanging out. We then go to Kat, who makes a dash for her hat. Makes a makes a dash from her house to get to Kim's place. So Kim is another character where Kat can then go um to bands and stuff like that, and hangs out when stuff gets a little bit too tough on the island. Bear with me, I'm just looking at my notes. So Alex is Lilia's friend, but also Kat and Alex had a thing over the summer, and they ended up kissing and stuff. And yeah, so that kind of gets interesting. I didn't do my notes very properly, to be honest. So yeah, so we basically had with Lilia's or Elle's sister is Nadia, and Nadia is a bit young. She's a freshman, and she ends up going out to drink for the night, and Alex is trying to like look after her and not. Basically, he got accused of sleeping with Nadia and stuff when that never happened. That he was just trying to look out for Nadia and kind of not tell her sister what she had actually been getting up to with the alcohol and stuff. Yeah, so it's basically a book about where the three of them want to get revenge for the other three characters. And Mary, what I like about Mary's character is because she's a ghost, and they kind of hint at that, but you don't really know that until the end of the book where it's kind of confirmed. Um, but Reeve actually upset Mary to the point where she tried to be friends with R, and he ended up pushing her off the ferry because they have to get like ferries on and off to the island, to Jar Island. And he ended up pushing her into the water that one night that pushed Mary over the edge to the point where she then went back to her house. 'Cause she didn't want her mum to see her in the state. And also, she didn't tell her parents about the bullying that he did when he called her Big Easy and stuff. So she ended up trying to end her life, and it was worded in one of the chapters as like her mum got back in time and phoned 911, and it kind of made it sound like that she didn't die at that point, but I think that was actually the point when she did actually die and Mary didn't actually make it out, like they kind of said, because of the fact that when she blew the lights off, when she made Rennie fall off the top of the pyramid in the cheerleading squad, because obviously there's a cheerleading squad and everything has to be perfect. Yeah, so it was mainly that, and then for Reeves' revenge, Mary ends up no, sorry, it was Lilia who ends up putting a drug in Reeves' drink at the homecoming because they have like a massive homecoming, and he ends up having a seizure and falling to the floor. And basically, Mary and the girls are blaming themselves, but they have to live with it, and they're hoping that they're going to get away with it, which I suppose we'll find out more in the next book. But we also have for Alex's revenge, Kat and Mary and Lydia end up stealing his notebook, which he writes poetry. This reminds me of a bit like Mean Girls because the scene was that Kat would then print out over 500 copies of Alex's poetry and basically set the fire alarm and stick it up all over the school corridors. And that reminded me a lot of Mean Girls when they did that scene in the classic one when they put the burn book everywhere. That's exactly what Kat done with Alex's poetry. So we've talked about Mary, how she ended it. I'm kind of dubious about going into detail on that because, like I say, I'm doing this for YouTube, so I don't know what certain words I can use. But yeah, but that's basically more the story of getting revenge because of the things that these three people have done to upset these girls and make them really angry to the point where they needed to get revenge. I mean, I recommend the book. Um, this is probably a really shit review. I haven't done these reviews for a while, even with the notes. I probably need to find a better way to do them. But it was kind of refreshing. The chapters are really short as well, so they're literally like under 10 pages of each chapter in great detail. But if you like kind of cheerleader and football, there's a bit of that in there too. If you kind of like revenge and stuff and girls kind of getting their own back, um, I don't think I'll go into detail about the scene because there was a scene where Lilia ends up with Rennie and they end up going out to like some random boy's party and Lilia ends up getting essayed. And Rennie really annoyed me as a character because she was victim blaming um, Lilia and literally being like, yeah, but you never said no and stuff like that. That really didn't sit well with me either. So I really didn't like that bit at all. Um, but yeah, as I say, I was kind of lucky because I've got the one because they did a recover as well. So I've got the one with the old cover. Um, but yeah, I think that's all I can say really because even though it's a 300-page book, I only try and take the juiciest things out, and it's really hard onto what I can go over. Um, with that kind of stuff, because when there's a lot of like trigger warnings and stuff. But the only reason I wanted to, as I say, I wanted to go back and read it was mainly because of Mary's point of view in this book, because not only are her chapters really short, but because she's a ghost, and in order for her to be able to move on from Jar Island and to find some sort of pieces for her to get revenge, and she wants Reeve to basically see her and notice her, and he doesn't to begin with, but it's only towards the end of the book at Homecoming that he actually sees her before he has his seizures and calls her Big Easy, which was a horrible nickname he had for her. Yeah, and he was just basically an arse about her weight, and Mary never had any friends, and she would always be bullied about her weight. So I kind of relate to her, but the ghost and the paranormal stuff of her like blowing stuff and being in denial, and then she's finally realised that she did like do the thing with the lockers where she made all the lockers close on themselves. She made Rennie fall off like a pyramid in the cheerleading kind of squad thing. And then she basically caused a massive power surge at the end of the book at Homecoming Queen, especially when R was drugged as well. Um, but yeah, that's all I can say really. So the next book is, I think it goes burn for burn, fire with fire. No, I think it's burn for burn, ashes to ashes, fire with fire, with fire and fire being the longest book in the trilogy. So if you read it, it is a trilogy, and there's only 3 books. But as I say, just be wary of those trigger warnings, just because some people may read it and it may not sit well, doesn't sit well with me. I don't know if I'm, as I say, I don't know if I'm going to keep it, because now that I've reread it again, I don't know if I've got if I ever have that urge to go back and read it again now that I've read it and I've kind of, when you get to an adult and you read it from an adult perspective compared to a teenagehood, and then you realise all of these issues are a big deal, with everything. But yeah, that's all I have to say really. So thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.